Hey, one more thing before you go. What if you got to choose your own adventure? Much like a fantasy role playing game like Dungeons and Dragons. Your character has a set of skills, a particular set of skills, and attributes as you overcome obstacles and gain experience. You can uplevel your character to become more powerful and accomplish bigger and better goals. What does astrology have to do with the human game? Stay tuned. We're going to have a conversation with the human game experience and how you have the opportunity to play. I'm your host, Michael Hurst. Welcome to One More Thing Before You Go. My guest in this episode is Kevin Burke. He's the headmaster of the Real Astrology Academy and the creator of the Human Game Experience, which we're going to talk about. He's been in counseling and coaching as an astrologer since 1998, teaching astrology since 2000, and is the author of more than a dozen books. While conducting an astrology training program in 2021, Burke began to play with the story of the human game. Within a few months, Burke discarded the entire curriculum at the Real Astrology Academy, and as of 2023, the Real Astrology Academy no longer teaches astrology. What it does teach is how to tell better astrology stories with astrology and the human game, which I can't wait to find out more about, this unique approach to life. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thank you, Michael. Glad to be here.
You know what? As I said, I know I say this many times even before we started, I love the word unique in this perspective because it is unique. I mean, obviously, we all know about humanity, I think, is a game overall. We all have to play a role. You know, we every day we play a role. We take on as a husband, a wife, father, a son, a daughter, a brother, a spouse, a significant other. We take on the role as a cop, a firefighter, a doctor, an EMT, or whatever the case may be. That's a role, right?
Yeah.
In everything we play, a housewife, a homemaker, a mother, a sister, blah, 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 blah. It goes on and on and on.
It
But
does.
I've never really thought about the human game. So I'm ready to embark on this journey.
Well, great. Where would you like to start?
I like to start at the beginning. A little bit about, and we won't go, we'll play with it. But I like to start at the beginning because we want to know where you come up. Where'd you
Okay.
grow up?
I grew up in New Orleans, went to college in Connecticut, spent 28 years in San Diego, and moved to Houston in 2017.
Well, that was quick and easy.
Don't get used to it.
So you went to university, went to college.
Yep.
What'd you want to
Yep.
be when you grew up?
I majored in theater. That was always my passion, and still kind of is. There's still an act 3 plan to my life, where after I'm done doing all of the stuff that I'm doing here with the human game, that I get to then go off and become the creative director of original theater somewhere.
And that
But
works. That kind of makes sense with the role playing in the game. The human game, you kind of wrote a play in itself.
everything, every single part of my life, every weird little digression that I've taken has been an integral part of being able to create this philosophy and this program. I draw on my theater background and
Yeah.
improvisation skills and just everything that I've ever done, everything that I've ever studied, all of these digressions that I've had. It's like, oh, this creates a framework where I know where everything goes.
No,
It's been quite remarkable to get to that point.
well, it is. I think the theater background helps. I mean, it's
Tremendously.
my second passion: film, TV, theater. My kids grew up in that environment as well.
Mhm.
Got to act on stage with
Yeah.
my daughters in several different times during their growing up. They learned dance. They learned everything in regard to that. My my job was a
Hmm.
cop. And I
Right.
love my job. I love what I was doing. I
Hmm.
contributed to society in a way that I felt protected and served.
Hmm.
That was my obligation. But
Right.
my passion still lies in creativity and the arts and the theater and film and TV and anything from the creative aspect of it. So that intrigues me to understand how you integrated all that into this whole thing. It's like a big play, isn't it?
It is, and understand. I mean, this is so. Let me establish a little framework here. The human game philosophy, is based on the idea that the universe is made up of stories. Now, I didn't come up with that idea. That's actually a line from a 1968 poem called "The Speed of Darkness" by Muriel Rukeyser. I think I'm close to pronouncing her name correctly, but she originated that idea. I came across the idea in like a Facebook meme, and at some point it grabbed me, and I said, "Okay, what does this mean? Let's do something practical about this. If story is the smallest practical unit of reality, what does that mean? How does story work?" And then if you understand how story works, you can understand anything. And that's what the human game philosophy is. And story is everything. Story, we care. The entire, multi-billion dollar entertainment industry, movies, TV, books, podcasts, all runs on story. Human beings make sense of the universe by telling stories about it. And just having this as the framework of, let me step back from what I think is going on and know, well, the essence of whatever this is, it's a story. What does that mean? How can I understand how the story works, and then I can figure out how to make it better.
Well, yeah. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, reality is that we've been storytellers from the beginning of time. If we weren't storytellers, we wouldn't have what we have today in any kind of historical form. I mean, they were writing on cave walls when they were painting. That's a story. The
But
visual
even
story. It's a story.
but even just in our how human beings navigate reality,
Oh,
beyond the
absolutely.
entertainment value, beyond the external thing of story,
Mhm.
stories help us to recognize patterns in reality. And human beings function by observing reality and recognizing the patterns and basically saying, this is that. We make sense by saying, oh, this story is like that story. So I kind of know what to expect here.
I mean, it's a brilliant way of looking at that. I mean, stories in everything, stories in songs, stories in, like you said, TV, film, movies, everything. We live our life by stories.
Yeah.
Our story is to, we're born. It's supposed to work this way. We grow up. We go to school. It's supposed to work that way. The next chapter, we're supposed to graduate school, go to college, or another profession, or a blue collar profession.
Mhm.
And then from there, you get married. You have a white picket fence. You got two dogs, three kids. I mean, that story's been set in place for so long that our expectation for how we're supposed to live our life, I think, evolves and has originated from story. The
Every,
prince, the princess, the king and the queen, and
everything on every
everything.
level in every way. And your reality is completely subjective. I mean,
Yeah,
reality is real because you tell yourself it is. You are narrating reality to yourself. So you are literally living this story. You are living the story of your life. You are experiencing the story of your life as the protagonist, but you're also in the audience. You're also observing the story. And ultimately, you're also the author. You've got some creative control over that story, but
and you can be the
figuring out how to
antagonist.
do that.
Yeah, and you can be the antagonist.
Yes, but we're everything. I mean,
Whatever happens to work for you. Yeah.
Broadly, you're the only real person in your reality. I mean, this is, you are the only person you absolutely know for certain that exists. Other people claim they exist. We've only got their word for that. You personally only directly experience you and how you feel.
Yeah.
That's what lives inside you. That is your reality. Literally everything else appears to exist outside of
Yes, that's brilliant. See, my brain works in such a manner that it's not catching up with my mouth.
you.
It's interesting coming from the creative background
Mhm.
and understanding all that, in that the origination of anything that's told to us, whether it be visually or audibly, is all a story. No matter what, we had experienced life as a story anyway. I'm going to backtrack just a little bit because I know that in the introduction we talked about astrology and how you got involved in
Yes.
astrology. And I know there's an evolution with that. What was your fascination with, and how did you get involved in astrology in the first place?
Well, um, I was in a car accident, basically. Always had an interest in astrology, as people do.
There's easier ways to get to that.
Well, but okay, I told you none of the things you think were the simple questions were going to be simple. Good stories, not necessarily short stories. So how I got into astrology was that in 1992 I was rear-ended on I-5, and with the settlement money from that, I bought a new computer, one of the new Color Macs at the time, and then I had some money left over after buying the computer, and that was found money. That couldn't go to anything like clothes or rent. That had to go to something fun. And so I had seen advertised in the back of Macworld magazine, when there were still magazines, this software, this astrology software that would run astrology reports, and there were some, I had some custom fonts. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to do this. This would be fun. And I started a business running these sort of custom cookbook astrology reports, and it was a calligraphy font, and it was on a gold parchment paper, which is why everything on my website and my brand has been that gold parchment paper from back since 1992. So I started running that business, running charts, and trying to learn astrology on my own. Started taking astrology classes. My official training started in 1995. Found a teacher in San Diego and went through a series of trainings, and passed a series of certification exams through National Council for Geocosmic Research, which is one of the bigger astrology organizations. And wrote about, started teaching astrology in 2000. Wrote a bunch of books. It was, but really, I mean, it started just, I wanted the answers. That's, it's why I wanted to understand myself. Astrology promised answers.
We all want answers.
Yeah. And astrology promises, hey, here's everything you need to know to understand how to be happy. Here's everything about you. It's all encoded in this birth chart. And I, for close to 30 years, uh, basically tried to beat the answers out of it.
Yeah.
I really, I mean, I was stomping around demanding to see the manager. I took this as far as it could go, and it never quite delivered.
That makes sense.
Um, um, but I was always asking questions that other astrologers didn't understand, even why I was asking the question. And I never fit in with other astrologers. I never fit in anywhere, so it didn't bug me that I didn't fit in with astrologers. But I would get very frustrated with kind of the fuzziness of astrology interpretations. I mean, people would talk about, you'd have astrologers talking and they'd be using the jargon of astrology. It's like, okay, you think you've said something, but you don't, but that doesn't
Right.
really mean, okay, this is great. Ooh, that's all because Saturn is in Aries. Okay, great. And how does that translate to what I'm doing right now? How can
Yeah.
you, where does the critical thinking come in to say this is why,
Right.
that you're making an assertion that can actually be supported, and more importantly, that I can then build a system out of that to understand this is why this works. Here's the
Yeah.
underlying language of it. Here's how you can apply it and get to how can I do something with this. And I could never quite get there. And the reason was, again, nobody had really. Astrology is very much the blind man and the elephant, because everybody knows what astrology does, but nobody really has seen the whole elephant. Nobody really has
Right.
been able to just to understand what it actually is.
Well, even reading the daily horoscope, it could apply to you. It could not apply to you,
Well,
depending upon when
and
you were born,
and
where you were born, what time you were born. I mean, and
and that is the daily, the sun sign astrology columns. They have entertainment value. They are. I used to say they are to actual astrology what a paper airplane is to the Concorde. Um, uh, but again, we think that is astrology, and
right,
that's not. That's one expression of astrology. That's one perception of it. That's, ooh, the elephant's ear is like a fan, so the elephant is a fan. It's not what astrology actually is. And I figured out what astrology actually, I went through a whole massive rabbit hole of astrology research, but basically astrology is a science that explores how the cycles of the planets measure time. Astrology, what astrology is statistical time series analysis. Because when you look at an astrology chart, you think that you're seeing a two-dimensional representation of three dimensions. You're not.
right,
You're seeing a two-dimensional representation of four dimensions. You are looking at one frame of a film strip. Everything you're looking at is time. And so you need to understand, astrologers get caught up in the idea of precision and this caused that. And it's like, well, no. Understand that you're dealing with statistics, understanding that you're saying, you can't say that, well, Mars square Uranus caused this. And rightly, every time an astrologer says that, somewhere a scientist's head explodes. But what that actually is saying is this particular event, this particular thing, is statistically more likely to occur during the season of time defined by X. And that's what astrology is. That's how it works. And I guess on a broad scientific level, because then there's the whole, what does it matter personally? Because it doesn't really, we're looking at astrology as if it has some objective answers, and there's no such thing as objective answers, and you don't need objective answers. You want answers that you can use. You want information, basically. Let's. All you care about is how you feel. It's all anybody. It's all we know. Literally, all human beings understand is this sense of identity, sense of me, and how I feel. And human beings have like 8 lines of source code. I mean, we're less complicated than a Roomba, basically, and everything is about feel better. Largely avoid pain, pursue pleasure, but in every moment, our only objective is to feel better. If you feel good, that's all that matters. Nothing external. We engage with the outside world because we think somehow the outside world creates feelings inside of us, but it's only about the feelings. And so we think astrology's got all of these answers, and we look at the personality typing, which is, we think astrology is a system of personality typing, and it can be. And there's nothing wrong with personality typing, but the way that, it took me decades to realize, okay, the way people are approaching astrology, because this isn't what astrology is. This is another blind men and the elephant thing. This is the way astrology has been used for the last 100 years or so, is a system of personality typing. And so basically people think that it's about your personality. And so when you sit down with an astrologer to have your chart interpreted, you're basically having your portrait painted. And that's a lovely, I mean, it's very nice to sit down and have somebody tell you how pretty you are for 60 or 90 minutes. And it's a wonderful experience. And at the end of the experience, you have a portrait. And, my mom is a portrait artist, so I'm in no way denigrating portraits, but it's a portrait. You hang it up on
Right.
the wall. You look at it from time to time. Maybe it tells you a little something about yourself. That's nice, but it's a portrait. You can't do anything with it. It's descriptive, it's not active. And realizing for me the issue, the challenge, the frustrations that I had with astrology had nothing to do with astrology. They had everything to do with personality typing.
Well, and
I
I'm sure that's what kind of, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure that's what intrigues you with creating the experience that you just talked about, and the human game experience, and
it's what
combining.
it's what led to that, because I started coming up with this way of, oh, here's a totally different way of exploring some of these ideas. And it was the opposite of what I thought. I was always looking to try to integrate stuff, and this was literally breaking the astrology symbols down to like the most basic elements. I mean, not even looking at signs, just looking at like the modality of the sign, and then discovering, oh my goodness, that's useful. That's practical. How do I approach this particular goal? And recognizing that over and over and over again. And that's a strategy that I can use. And I got very excited about it because, and it was fun, and I saw the potential of this. And I started creating the human game. This was 2021. And it was in the middle of teaching an astrology training program, where I was having another one of my Captain of the Titanic experiences, of which I've had many, where I'm in the middle of a program that I have invested all of my time and energy into, and it's like, oh yeah, that is definitely an iceberg. This does not do what I thought it was going to do. And fortunately, this was an advanced program, so everybody that was in it had been through some version of this with me at least once before, and they're like, whatever you want to work on, you just share what's coming up in your head. We'll play with that. We don't care about this. We just want to be, experiencing what you're. So it's great. So I started pulling together what became the human game, and it was very complicated because I'm mapping all of this stuff out and figuring out what the framework could be. And I started realizing, ooh, this can be used in coaching, because part of the framework of this is, everything is, the planets are like construction vehicles, and you need to, everything you do through one of the planets in your chart. And the first thing a vehicle needs is fuel, because this was one of the challenges I had with coaching, is that so much about coaching is about motivation. You need to get motivation. It's like, well, no, I don't think motivation is really that big of an issue. If you believe a goal is going to make you happy, if you care about a goal, you're motivated. If you're not actually able to do something towards that goal, you don't lack motivation, you lack fuel. How do you get the fuel that you need so that you actually can then go do the thing that you're motivated to do? So I started building this out as kind of a coaching model, and putting that out there and working with people and figuring out what this was. But I was again dealing with my own version of Blind Men and the Elephant, because I didn't know what this was. I knew I was dealing with story stuff. I knew that it was a new way of working with astrology, and it was exploring some of that kind of stuff. And I was building out the idea of stories, but it's like, is it a coaching model? Is it a dessert topping? Is it a floor wax? I wasn't sure what it was. And then sometime in late, I guess, 2022, it had been about a year and a half since I initiated this, I realized it's a philosophy. And then I realized I'm a philosopher. I've never been an astrologer. I've always been a philosopher. I've never been an astrologer because I don't care about astrology. I care about the answers astrology has been promising me for 30 years. And at long last, I figured out how to get it to deliver. But to do that, I had to create the framework of the human game. To do that, I had to understand everything is story. Here's how story works. Here's where astrology fits in to that. Here's how you can incorporate astrology to help you to create better stories. Here's how astrology can help you to actually, achieve your goals and explore your potential and experience happiness, because it can, but you have to understand how to incorporate it in your story. It's not the way anybody expects. It's not the way anybody's experienced astrology before.
It's interesting because flashing through my head is the old mythologies of the Greek gods up above, and they've got this huge, playboard out in front of them, and they're taking their individual little people. You can't see my hand moving, but
Yeah.
individual little people down here, and they're saying, we're going to put you over here and you in here, and you're going to do this. You're going to go on this journey. You're going to go fight this three-headed beast, kind of a thing. And then they sit back and watch.
Well, and we kind of do that with our own lives too. But so let me get some framework around this so people can not feel quite so abstract. It's like, oh, this is interesting, but I don't understand how it works. So let me fill in the gap of what really is going to help make sense of this, which is understanding how story works. So the reality that you experience is what I call the composite story. If you've ever, so when you look at this podcast on your monitor, when you look at anything on a monitor or a TV screen, what you're seeing is a composite image. If you've ever done any video editing or photo editing in Photoshop, you have zero creative control over the composite image. The composite image is made up of three component images, three component channels: the red channel, the green channel, and the blue channel. And when you're editing a digital file, you're making changes to the component levels of the image, and then that makes changes to the composite image. So the reality that you experience is the composite story, and you have no creative control over the composite story. But the composite story is comprised of three component levels of story. There's the plot level story, the character level story, and the theme level story. The plot level story is the external sequence of events. It's what happened. Most of what you perceive as your reality, most of what you notice in the composite story is largely the plot level story. But the plot level story is just what happened. You have very little creative control over the plot level story. You did not create the conditions of your life. No matter how hard you try, you can't control everything, and frankly, most of the time you can't control anything. But that's okay, because that's just the plot level story. Plot level story is what happened. The character level story is what happened to me and how do I feel about it. The character level story is your reality. It is where you live. It is how you feel. So the plot level story is external. The character level story is what lives inside you. That is the most important thing. You have a lot of creative control over the character level story. Happiness is a feeling. We all want to be happy, and the human game experience, it's like your journey begins with happily ever after. We need to get your foundation of happiness established so you can go off and actually do big, better, wonderful things. But happiness is a feeling, so it exists in the character level story, not in the plot level story. And then we have the theme level story. The theme level story is universal, archetypal, mythological, spiritual. It is big. It deals with humanity, not with individual humans. It is absolutely not personal, but the theme level story is where you find meaning and purpose. But everything in the theme level story is symbolic. Astrology, as a symbolic language, operates entirely in the theme level story. Now, here's the thing. You can't take theme level concepts and apply them directly to the plot level story. You can't do that. That's where things break down. You have to take the theme level truth, whether it's astrology or any kind of spiritual truth or spiritual concept, because we do this a lot. We don't understand, oh, you can't just apply this to the external world. You have to take that energy from the power plant, basically, and then step it down through the character level story, and to the transmission lines, and then finally, it shows up in the electrical outlet in the plot level story, where you can apply a tiny specific little aspect of that to something going on in your external plot level story. But you can connect when you tap into the theme level story. There's meaning. It's amazing, but you can't find practical answers there. And this is the thing. Astrologers and astrology operates entirely in the theme level story. And while you get this experience of, oh, that's so meaningful, oh, that's so true, and yes, it is, but then you can't do anything with it because you have to figure out how to step it down. You have to be able to bring it into the character level story, and then from there you can apply it a little bit to the plot level story.
And I mean, what a fascinating opportunity for and a unique opportunity for us to kind of get involved in kind of the game of life. To me, that's what it sounds. I know you call it the human experience, but
Well, the human game, yes.
It's playing the game of life. I mean, from our own perspectives, and that I like the idea that we've got control of our own stuff. Were you ever a gamer?
I played Dungeons and Dragons when it first came out. I'm not old. It became popular when I was like, I remember some friends when I was in seventh grade had just initially gotten the initial modules, and I was more interested in the whole idea of it. I played it a couple of times, never had a bunch of people that I could do it with, but had all of the books and loved the idea of the story. And I remember, I mean, again, one of the things that sort of factored into creating this, I remember in seventh grade, like walking through the halls of my high school and imagining mapping this out on the graph paper, because what if this were actually that kind of event? So always had that possibility. And it's fun. I mean, this is the thing.
Right.
It's fun. Nobody knows. You can get control over your own story. And it doesn't, you can always find the fun. I mean, I've been playing the human game since 2021. I've never had more fun in my life.
Yeah, and that's important in our lives. Which that brings me back to something. If I can regress just a
Yeah.
few moments here, You've mentioned this a couple of different times, or two or three different times throughout this conversation. What is the happiness problem that we've got? I mean,
Okay.
can we touch on that?
So, so the happiness problem um, is basically that you're not happy. Because when you're happy, you have no problems, and if you're not, and not being happy is in fact a problem. So one of the important things with the human game is appreciating the difference between an obstacle and a problem. An obstacle is anything that interferes with your ability to achieve an external goal. Anything that stands in between you and something you want is an obstacle. A problem is anything that interferes with your happiness. Not getting what you want is only a problem if you think that getting what you want is necessary for you to be happy. But an obstacle is part of the plot level story. The obstacle is, in fact, act two of the plot level story. There must be obstacles. There will always be obstacles. But an obstacle doesn't have to be a problem. A plot level obstacle that interferes with your ability to achieve an external plot level goal does not have to be a character level problem that interferes with your happiness, because happiness is a character level story. Happiness is a feeling. And so recognizing how to part of what we do in the human game experience, solving the happiness problem, involves number one, learning to recognize the patterns of story in your own life, so you can start to separate out the plot level story from the character level story, because nothing you care about is in the plot level story. The plot level story, the plot level story is accurate. It describes the plot. It describes what happened, but it leaves out everything you care about. So the plot of The Lord of the Rings is a bunch of friends go on a road trip to dispose of a piece of unwanted jewelry.
That's brilliant,
Absolutely
actually.
accurate.
That's
Absolutely
brilliant.
accurate. That is the plot. That does not describe anything that matters about that.
Yeah, that's.
But appreciating that and then realizing, okay, there's the plot level of what's going on in my life, and then there's the character level. And then learning how to separate out the character level story and realize all I need to actually be happy. I need to meet my safety needs. I need to meet my validation needs. I need to manage the balance in my internal safety need account and my validation need account. And when I'm maintaining a minimum balance in the safety need account and the validation need account, I am happy. Now, happy doesn't necessarily mean what people think it does. Happy doesn't mean you feel good. Happy just means you no longer feel bad. Happy means you are no longer driven by your wants or your needs. By comparison, it feels amazing. I mean, happiness does not suck, but it's not. But it's not your end goal. I mean, as a happily ever after isn't the end of your story. Just because it's at the end of all of the fairy tales, it's not the end of your story. Happily ever after very specifically means your life, your story goes on ever after. And all it means is you no longer have to worry about happiness.
What do you think? How does purpose play into that? Because I know we all want to find purpose in our lives. We all want to. I mean, we value purpose in understanding why we're here, what we're here for, in what our purpose is.
Okay. So you are very directly using some theme level concepts. So purpose is a part of the theme level story. What you value is part of the theme level story. So we need to get there. And it's a process. of recognizing, okay, the plot level story is just something to do. It's fun. We can it's fun to do things in the external world, but that really doesn't matter. What we care about is how we feel. So that's the character level story. You build a foundation of happiness. And then you can start to explore, what do you value? Because what you've got to solve the happiness problem. One of the tools in the human game experience is the value compass. And the value compass is kind of a flow chart where you can go from literally anything. I mean, whether anything you want, whether it's a goal or a fantasy or even a fear, you can use the value compass and find out, what do you really care about, because it takes you through all three levels of story. But the first thing you do is say, what do you want? And then the character level story, why do you want it? And you separate out everything that has to do with happiness. Why do you want it? Well, it's going to meet my safety needs. Great. Eliminate that. Why do I want it? Well, it's going to meet my validation needs. Great. Eliminate that. Do you still want it? What's left? What's left when this is no longer about happiness, when this is no longer about just meeting your safety needs, just meeting your validation needs? Whatever's left points you to something that you value. And values are not personal, and they're not physical, and they're not even internal to you. They're universal and archetypal. But the value compass points you to how you win. How do you get the experience that gives you meaning? How do you figure out what your life is really about? But you have to learn. It's tricky because you can't. We're so used to looking for everything in the outside world. We're used to looking for purpose and happiness in the outside world because the light's better. But that's not where it exists. When you discover, the value compass can help you to find this connection to what you really care about. And I've got this sort of narrowed down to simplify things. Ultimately, in this process, we're narrowing it down to three possible things you're looking to have a deeper understanding of the truth of: love, power, or wisdom. And when you get a connection to what this thing that this goal that I have, this desire to actually, complete this project at work, what that's really about for me, what that's really connecting me to on the theme level, is this desire to have a deeper appreciation of the truth of love. And when you make that connection, when you can just thread the needle and tap that in, all of a sudden, everything you're doing, because it's, a little astrology goes a long way, a little theme level goes a long way. But when you can make that connection, it's like, oh, I know what this is really about. I know ultimately how this is contributing to the story, and it might not make obvious sense right now, and I might not be able to directly feel it right now, but I know I'm on a path. I know what this is leading me towards. And having that, I mean, we don't, it takes a little while to be able to build the framework to get safely down to the theme level and be able to grab something from there and bring it back up to the character level story where you can do something with it. But that's what this program does. And then you're able to go, because the things we value, they're not tangible. I mean, beauty is a core value. Beauty is an eternal quality of the divine. It's present at all times in all things. You can't run out of beauty and have to go down to the corner store and pick some more up. All you can do is fail to notice it. And we fail to notice these important things in the theme level because we are getting so caught up in the plot level story, and because the stakes get so high with the plot level story that we're not able to see the bigger picture. And this is part of what this is a big part of what the human game is designed to do, because it's and these are relatively minor adjustments, because we're all looking for this. This is, everybody cares about this, but we've got this very elegant but very rudimentary programming that means we're writing code as we go along, and sometimes the Roomba gets caught in the corner, and sometimes you got to kind of pick it up and go, oh no, this way. And so that's kind of what this does, because I said the only law of the human game is the best story wins. If I can give you a better story, if I can help you to have a better way of understanding, oh yeah, that makes sense, that explains everything I'm going through and gives me more options and feels better. Yeah, the instant you're exposed to that, that was always your story. Your entire life gets rewritten because that's that. You don't need to learn that. That becomes your reality. And all of a sudden you've got these new options. All of a sudden you're able to just experience this.
Well, let me ask you this: can we win?
Yes. Oh my God.
So,
Absolutely. That's the whole point. We are always looking to win. And a win, because again, the only thing that matters is how we feel. So you win, the big prizes are just the really good feelings. But you win if you manage to feel better.
mm-hmm.
And we are always running our programming such that we're always winning, because we're always making the best possible choice. But sometimes that means moving the goalposts in a way that, oh yes, I made this choice and I won because making that choice made me feel a little bit better than I felt before. That's a win. It doesn't matter that I only felt better for about 30 seconds before it got a heck of a lot worse, but that's a new problem. That's not the old problem. I won.
I agree with that. I
And
was learning to walk again, and every step was a new win. And even though I only had two or three in the beginning, it was a new win every day, every day, every
but
day.
when you can frame things in that way, when you can, we already move the goalposts in very, but when you can go through your life and go, oh, goals are fun.
Yep.
Goals are, plot level goals are fun, but you can win. How do I set things up so I can win? How do I just, because I get to decide what the game is. I get to decide what my objectives are. You start, some of it is strategy, some of it is understanding how we are programmed, and how to go in and make some adjustments to your underlying source code of how you're looking at things. But it's really, yeah, I mean, this is what I talk about when I mean creative control. These are the things that little changes that you can make. It doesn't change the external circumstances, but the external circumstances can't cost you anything.
Well, as
But
you said, it's a city map of your life.
yes.
It's a city map of your life. Well, let's tell everybody how somebody else can get involved, how we can get involved, how we can understand, how we can jump into the game, so to speak.
Okay. Well, if you visit playthehumangame.com, that is the portal to everything. You'll find a video up top there that talks about how to solve the happiness problem. And then below that is the how to play video, which will talk to you about the human game experience, the quest for happiness. And the human game experience this is the actual game. It is a program that plays out over 8 weeks. It includes 8 weeks of video tutorials and a comprehensive player's handbook. And you're actually going through this process and you are leveling up your character by completing gameplay objectives. Um, you got It's a game, so every part of it is optional. But uh, you'll have access to the videos for 2 years. I'm trying to make it clear that yes, it unfolds over 8 weeks, but you don't only have 8 weeks to complete. 8 weeks is the shortest possible time that you can complete this in, but it's not your deadline. But this will walk you through, take you by the hand, walk you through how to discover the stories in your life, how to map the stories in your life in the human game matrix, how to take creative control over the story of your life. You will learn how to build a foundation of happiness. You will build a happiness GPS that's based on your birth chart. You're gonna there's little You're gonna use some information based on the moon in your birth chart to show you how you approach safety and which language you speak for safety and where you find safety. And you'll do the same thing for validation needs with Venus, and you will use these. You will actually take this little teeny piece of astrology and go, oh my God, I'm using it here, I'm using it here. Because it's a practical strategy. Um, Over the course of this, I install a few software patches in your human operating system. We lower your guilt tax bracket. So you actually will be noticeably measure. Maybe not. You'll be able to measure the difference in happiness, even if all you do is just watch the videos.
I love the analogies of how to help us understand in common language how that all plays a part. The patch, yeah, put a patch in, and
Yeah, it's just I like the programming metaphors. I like the I talk about a little bit in this program what I call the human algorithm, because we're not that complicated.
yeah,
I mean, motivations. Like, no, there's a few elements missing from like Freud and Maslow's ideas of human motivation, but what's broadly missing is the framework of, well, everything is story, so let's understand how this operates in the context of the story matrix and know this is the plot level, this is the character level, here's how this, and here's where the theme level comes in with consciousness, and here's how it all fits together. And all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, those actually are the levers. I can actually address those. I can actually implement these changes and immediately have fun. I mean, this is
right.
it's a game. It really, the whole point of this is to have fun.
Plus, I think it also allows us to understand the societal norms that have been implemented into our brains at a very, very early age and what the cultural and societal expectations are for what we're supposed to be doing and
And
overrides them to a point where it shows us what we could be doing or maybe what we should be doing
yes,
from a
and
different
and
perspective.
here's the thing. All of that is theme level.
Exactly.
Really, really useful to recognize that all of these societal norms, all of the external stuff, all of these great big things, it's theme level. It's not personal. It's universal. It's archetypal. It's kind of the setting.
Yeah.
It's symbolic. It's not about what it appears to be about. Whatever challenges or struggles you personally experience because of these theme level expectations, these theme level lies, basically, are giving you clues to point you to a truth, to point you to something you personally value. This is advanced human game stuff, but literally you look at these big things and you realize, okay, none of this is personal to me, but it's affecting me personally. So what part of this lives in me? And where is this helping me to identify a lie that I personally believe? Where is this helping me to find the truth of something I genuinely value so I can win, so I can really connect to that meaning and purpose? Because it does that, but that takes some training to be able to look at it in that way. But for the time being, it's like, oh yeah, all that's all theme level. It's there, it's real, it's a thing, and you don't need to deal with the theme level story. Theme level story is way optional. Don't start there.
That's brilliant. I mean, absolutely. I think the opportunity exists for us to be able to improve our lives from a very unique perspective. We've got about a minute left. So, first of all, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your wisdom, your experience, and your journey with us. I think it was a brilliant journey that you have come on and that you're sharing with us. Second is, this is one more thing before you go. So, before we go, do you have any words of wisdom?
Have fun. I mean, really, it's find the fun in your story. It's that's the best thing. That's the best thing that I can offer. It makes such a difference because when you can lower the stakes enough and realize, oh, this doesn't have to be that serious. I can have fun. Everything else follows from that. All of these sort of aspirational goals become operational once you find the fun, once you start to lower the stakes. And yeah, I mean, you can have what I'm having. This is this is the thing I'm really trying to convey.
That's amazing words of wisdom. I think we all should take note that and put that at the forefront of our minds as we explore this opportunity and kind of give a little introspection in our own selves and find out whether or not we are seeking more fun in life, because we all need more fun. Anyway, Kevin, thank you very much for being here. Honestly, thank you for reaching out. I appreciate you being on the show. We're going to have another conversation down the road. I think that we got much more to talk about. But in the meantime, I got to say to everyone, you and everyone else out there, one more thing before you all go. Have a great day. Have a great week. And thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening to this episode of One More Thing Before You Go. Check out our website at beforeyougopodcast.com. You can find us as well as subscribe to the program and rate us on your favorite podcast listening platform.